Welcome, everyone, to Couch Potato Diary, Part 2. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for tuning in today. Part 1, we talked some UFC and some WWE. Part 2, it's about the stick and ball sports as we look at a devastating loss for the Edmonton Oilers in Game 3 of their Western Conference Final. Get ready for the Eastern Conference Final, Game 4 tonight, and look at the NBA's Eastern Conference Finals final. That made sense. All right, let's get into it. Talking some hockey. All right, so the Edmonton Oilers now find themselves in a 2-1 series hole after blowing a 3-0 lead in Game 3 of their West Final against the Dallas Stars. And the first thing is that simply cannot happen. After a dominant first period where it felt like they controlled the pace, speed, and puck of the entire period and came out with an edge, they were flat. The rest of the way they were flat. And they had a couple of moments, but they didn't quite get there. And then they were completely dominated after that. The Stars figured out what Edmonton was doing, and they got it going. It is very much like a fight where a boxer will get the first couple of rounds and okay, we're moving, we're shaking, we got this going on. And then Canelo figures it out and he's downloaded the information, he's got it now, and then he cruises the rest of the way. Not saying that Dallas cruised the rest of the way, but they do pick up 5 straight goals and a 5-3 win over the Edmonton Oilers. And I think the biggest concern for me from an Edmonton standpoint was the lack of Leon Draisaitl in this game. He was banged up in the Vancouver series. They put him up with McDavid and Hyman, and that seemed to get him going a little bit, but now on his own line again, it wasn't there. And when this team needed something to get going, it was McDavid and no one else. Draisaitl needs to be that other guy, and we know he can be. So maybe it is just a dude who's banged up, but he was absent in a game where Edmonton needed this. You think of the momentum they get. And as I said, I was on Game Over Edmonton last night. Go check it out now on the Game Over Network. But if they tie that game up, they win in overtime. There's no question. They get the momentum off of that and win this one in overtime. And now, instead of being up 2-1 on home ice, where it doesn't matter what you do in Dallas, if you just win your home games, you are going to the Stanley Cup final. They had that opportunity in the palm of their hands and they lost it. And now it feels like you're reeling a little bit, and it feels like Dallas has figured out a lot of stuff that should make you concerned. The big key now is Leon Draisaitl getting back at it so that this Edmonton team does have 2 elite lines that they can throw at the depth of the Dallas Stars, but they needed him to be that guy last night. And they made too many mistakes as well. Like, it's not just Leon. All 3 goals in that second period came off of failed clearing attempts. That cannot happen. In the Stanley Cup playoffs, you need that extra 5-10%. That will get you the rest of the way. And it wasn't there in that. It was stopped short at the line, weak clearing attempts getting held up, and that allows Dallas to get one more crack at it, and Edmonton's defense just isn't good enough. And this is another thing I said last night. A lot of people were talking about, see, this Edmonton team can defend. And now, not to just make too many conclusions off of one game, but I think what we're seeing now is that Edmonton didn't necessarily defend well, they just didn't have to defend a lot because they had the puck a ton, which, like, there's no shame in that game at all. But now that it has kind of evened out a little bit, I think we're seeing that maybe the defense wasn't that good. It just wasn't as tested as much in the Vancouver series as they are being tested here in this Dallas one. And they need to step up. And a big part of that, the Nurse-CC combination needs to never happen again. They need to, write that idea down on a piece of paper and shoot it into the sun, like I said last night on Game Over. That they have been perpetually on the wrong side of every metric you could possibly find. They are getting their heads beaten in on a day in, day out, game in, game out basis. That cannot be a pairing anymore, or else this team will lose. You can't just have an absolute dud of a pairing with one of your most important players in Darnell Nurse. Can't happen. Can't do it. That gives a huge edge to the Dallas Stars as well. And one last note here for Edmonton. This one is not on Stuart Skinner. I know a lot of people may try to do that, although I'm happy that hasn't necessarily been the narrative, but just to really drive it home, when they were up 3-0, and Dallas was really making that push in the second period, he made a few huge saves to keep Edmonton in front. And then eventually that dam did burst, but it wasn't on him. It was the defensive play in front of him and the lack of contributions from their biggest players that have the Edmonton Oilers in this hole. But it's not only what Edmonton did wrong, there is a lot of what Dallas did right. And I think the big key for Dallas, the breaking news, the guy scoring the hat trick was important for the Dallas Stars, but Jason Robertson getting going was massive for this team. We had said, like, okay, the veterans have got going a little bit. When will the kids show up in the series? And the kids have shown up in the series now. Excuse me. The kids have shown up in this series now. Johnston was really good last night. Stankoven was all over the place in that game last night. And Robertson comes up with the 3 big goals, helping the Stars to this win. And still, Sagan was a factor. Ben was a factor. Dodonov had a breakaway opportunity. So the veterans are still playing well. And now the kids are contributing. They feel like they are ready to enter this series now and kind of have a lay of the land of what the Western Conference Final is all about and what is required of them to get this team to the Stanley Cup Final. That is a huge edge for Dallas, because like I said, Edmonton is still waiting for one of their guys to show up in a big time way. And now Dallas's kind of have. So now it's on Edmonton to try to counterpunch that. And I'll be interested to see how they do counterpunch it. What matchups do we see against this top line? What do they do with the top line in general? Do we go McDryman again? Now that Henrique is back, put him up on the second line and work it that way? Or does Draisaitl just figure it out and they continue playing there? But this is, I think, a huge development for Dallas. And the other one is Miro Heiskanen showed up as well. We had talked about it here before, where the first couple of games of the series, Heiskanen, from an expected goal standpoint, got his head beat in. He was like 17-20% in those first couple. He was better in this one, and he got the better of Leon Draisaitl, and that seems like the key matchup here. If the Draisaitl line can build that momentum off of Heiskanen, I know they were talking on the TV broadcast about Heiskanen not being scored against. It was basically everything but. But in this one, in Game 3, he was better. He was driving play. He was creating opportunities for his teammates. He was back to being one of the best defensemen in the league. If they can win those, the Heiskanen versus Draisaitl minutes are massive in this series. If Dallas wins that, then you feel good about the rest of their depth against the rest of Edmonton's depth. If Draisaitl can win that matchup against Heiskanen, then you have taken out one of the best defensive players in the league, and you now have Tanev against McDavid, which in theory seems fine, but Tanev hasn't always been good against McDavid. So it is just such a huge key matchup, and it was advantage Dallas in Game 3. Shifting to Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Final, as the New York Rangers get ready to take on the Florida Panthers later on tonight. The Rangers are the Breaking Bad meme of he can't keep getting away with it, because they keep getting kind of outplayed in these games, and they keep winning. And a big part of it is obviously Igor Shesterkin. And look, they're not like... These games that they have won but not looked as good in have been significantly more impressive, I think, than the Carolina ones. I thought Carolina was kind of skating circles around them, and the Rangers found their breaks and they capitalized. But for the Rangers this time around, it is Shesterkin coming up with big saves when they need them, which is often, and it is Lafreniere showing up in big moments now. And at times it was Panarin. I feel like he has still been a little bit quiet. At times it's Zibanejad. Kreider is always around it, but Lafreniere, I think, has been the big difference for the Rangers, finding his moments to contribute in this series and finding his ways of making differences for this New York Rangers squad, and allowing them to, again, be able to roll those lines confidently. I think the big thing that they have done, too, is create a little chaos in front of Sergei Bobrovsky, who doesn't really handle that well. He has made some exceptional saves and been very good at times, but they have also done a pretty good job of just making it a mess in front of him and creating opportunities off of those scrambles. So we'll see. Florida kind of flashed that they might be doing something different with their lines tonight. I would be surprised, because they're playing well. I think the Panthers do get back on track with this one, and I think the Panthers end up coming away with a victory. So that's what's going on in the NHL. Let's do some quick basketball talk. One half of the NBA Finals are set as the Boston Celtics make their way past the Indiana Pacers in 4 games to wrap up the Eastern Conference and get ready for the NBA Finals in like a month. I think it gets started June 6th. So it is a lengthy layoff now for the Boston Celtics. And we'll see how they handle that. Because, I mean, look, They have not been tested. They have created their own problems in series against Cleveland and Miami for a night or two, but they have not overly been tested in this postseason run. And now you have 9 days of everyone telling you how great you are, and then you'll be tested in a big time way. Whether it's the Mavericks or the Timberwolves, you will be tested in a very big way. So interested to see how they handle that. But the story of this series, and we've talked about it before, is Jaylen Brown, I think, leveling up. Again, I know it wasn't against the most resistance, but I do think, I didn't think this guy had that in him. And it does come with Tatum still out there, so some of the responsibility does get taken off of him a little bit, and some of the focus gets taken off of him a little bit. But I didn't know he had this in him, to be perfectly honest with you. I've said before, I didn't think of him as a 1A, 1B. I thought of him as riding shotgun. But this was him being the guy. And this is why you go out and pay those two guys what you do, is hoping that when Tatum has maybe a bit of a quieter series, Brown can step up, and in matchups that favor him, he can be that guy. We'll see what they can do now against the Dallas Mavericks or the Minnesota Timberwolves. We'll see if Minnesota can kind of make their comeback tonight. But for Boston, they are the favorites for a reason going into this. Like, they have so many ways they can beat you. Defensively, they are very good. Holiday and White and Tatum and Brown can all defend, and whether it's Porzingis or Horford or whoever at the rim, it's not, again, you're not Dikembe Mutombo out there, but you have a complete unit. And offensively, again, so many ways they can beat you, especially if they can get KP back up to speed, and Lord knows they have the time to now. So this is still a very difficult team to beat. Out west, I think we are seeing now something that I think should affect people's view on team building. And this is a bit of a special case because Luka Doncic is a special type of a player. There's no question about that. He is probably the second best player, maybe at worst third best player in the NBA right now. He has been playing that good. And you have Kyrie, who is with him, who is playing some of the best basketball he has played in a long time. But I think for a while, the perception was, because this team was very bad defensively, and the thought was, okay, well, you need to have, if you're going to have Luka and Kyrie, you need to have, Ben Wallace and Dennis Rodman and Shane Battier out there. Probably could have had more recent examples, but you know what I mean? You need to have three all-world defensive players out there around these two guys. And I think what we're seeing now is you don't really, because Luka is so good at controlling games that he'll get you there offensively. You just need enough defensively. Now, yeah, it would be good if you had someone with the defensive talents of a Rudy Gobert and an Anthony Edwards on that team to just lock things down, and then you beat everyone 120-70. But I do think that there was maybe a bit of an over-exaggeration because things were so bad defensively in Dallas that, man, you need to improve a lot just to get this team up to being average. But now you see, Gafford is a fine defensive player. Washington is okay. Lively, we'll see how healthy he is, but he's been all right. You just need a few guys who can do enough defensively to get the ball to Luka in those big spots. Just get enough stops instead of needing all these all-world defenders around Luka. You just need good, and he'll get you the rest of the way. But this has been an absolute breakout performance from him. And, all of us knew how good he was, but it's nice to see the proof of concept that now he can get a team to within at least a win of the NBA Finals. A bit of a quicker one, but that's going to do it for Couch Potato Diary today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I forgot to say this in part one, and I should have. It's the wrestling one. But if you are watching this in the next few hours, I'm going to be at Brickwell Tap House tonight getting ready for another edition of Wild Rose Wrestling. So very excited about that. And so come check us out if you're here in Calgary. If not, make sure you subscribe whether you're watching or listening. If you are listening, make sure you leave a review. If you're watching, like the video. Follow me on social media at Primetime Klein, and I'll talk to all of you all later. I'm out.